Welcome to today's edition of the Rush 24/7 podcast.
Hey, folks, how are you? Greetings. Great to have you here. Rush Limbaugh, already the middle of the week. You know, honestly, when I finished the program yesterday, I thought today was going to be Friday. That's how intense just the first 2 days of the week has been. But here we are on Wednesday, hump day, middle of the week. Great to have you here. I think, folks, it's safe to say Donald Trump thinks that he got schlonged in Iowa. 800-282-2882. If you want to be on the program, the email address, lrushbo@eibnet.com. Donald Trump, thinking he was schlonged in Iowa, accuses Ted Cruz of fraud and is calling for a new election. From the Politico, Donald Trump on Wednesday, that's today, ratcheted up his rhetoric after his loss in the Hawkeye caucus, accusing Ted Cruz of illegally stealing the election in a tweet that he subsequently deleted. Accusing the Texas senator of fraud, Trump said later that a new election should take place or Cruz's results should be nullified. Mr. Trump said that Ted Cruz didn't win Iowa. He illegally stole it. Now, he had to pull that back. He had to withdraw that tweet and take the word illegally out of it. There were legal consequences to that, so he pulled it back. People grabbed screenshots of it, though, and he retweeted it without the word illegally in it. So it's Ted Cruz didn't win Iowa. He stole it. That's why all the polls were so wrong. Any wonder why he got more votes and why he got more votes than anticipated? Very bad. Trump tweeted Wednesday morning. The tweet disappeared within minutes of posting, as I say, because of the word illegally in there. He then retweeted minutes later, correcting a typo, removing the word illegal. Well, it wasn't a typo. That would have opened up all kinds of legal, libel possibilities. So that's why it was withdrawn and then retweeted minus the word illegally. Final tweet was, Ted Cruz didn't win Iowa. He stole it. That's why all the polls were so wrong and why he got far more votes than anticipated. Bad. You know, folks, Trump calling fraud on the Iowa caucuses and saying that it should be done over might be the best proof yet that Trump is not your typical Republican establishment candidate. No matter what happens, Republican establishment candidates almost never complain when they lose elections. And I know some people have been thinking that Trump is a wolf in sheep's clothing with all this previous quotes people can produce of him supporting liberal causes and liberal Democrat candidates and so forth. But I tell you, when I see him protesting the results of an election, that, to me, erases any fear that he might be an establishment guy, because, let's face it, establishment Republicans never complain about anything anybody does to them. Man, what a way to kick off the day. Here's a series of tweets that Trump has produced so far today. Ted Cruz didn't win Iowa. He stole it. That's why all the polls were so wrong and why he got far more votes than anticipated. Bad. During prime time of the Iowa caucus, Cruz put out a release that Ben Carson was quitting the race and to caucus for Cruz. Another tweet, many people voted for Cruz over Carson because it is Cruz fraud. Also, Cruz sent out a voter violation certificate to thousands of voters. Another tweet, the voter violation certificate gave poor marks to the unsuspecting voter, grade of F, and told him to clear it up by voting for Cruz. Fraud. And finally, last tweet that was sent out, Cruz strongly told thousands of caucus goers that Trump was strongly in favor of Obamacare and choice. A total lie. And people are wondering, I mean, I'm sure you are too, does anybody pre-read these tweets before they go out? Is there anybody that Trump runs these by, or is there somebody tweeting them instead of him? Is somebody doing this that he doesn't know about? No, that's not possible. Is he tweeting? Does he run these by anybody? I mean, really, to put out a tweet that Cruz didn't win Iowa, he stole it, and to demand a new election? Is there nobody in the Trump universe that looks at that, might not want to send that right now? But apparently not. Donald Trump has demanded a new election because of the way Cruz defrauded Ben Carson. In another tweet, Trump referred to the Cruz campaign's mailer sent out, this voter violation stuff. And he followed up by writing that Cruz had misled Iowans about his Trump's stand on health care, the Affordable Care Act, and all that. All of this, it's all over the place. This is Politico that I'm reading it from. Let's go to the audio sound bites on this. And I want to start with something I explained yesterday that I got right. Trump confirmed it, not by name. Remember the tweet from yesterday that he said that it self-funded the campaign and there wasn't any appreciation for it. They got no credit for it or whatever, but he was going to keep doing it even though it wasn't worth it. And everybody said, what does that mean? What in the world does that mean? It's not worth it. If it's not worth it, why are you going to do it? And I, your host, endeavored to explain it thus. It's number 9. We're starting here at number 9. I think that his point is all this talk about all the money in politics, and there's too much of it and too much lobbyists. So he goes out and self-funds, and nobody says anything about it. Nobody praises him for setting a new tone, a new direction in politics. So what he's saying is, essentially, that self-funding his campaign has not gotten the accolades he thought that it would get. So last night in Milford, New Hampshire, at a campaign event, or actually before one, he had a press conference, and during Q&A, he actually explained it, and see if it's pretty close to what I supposed it was.
I'm self-funding, and I must tell you, I don't know that enough people appreciate it. I'm self-funding anyway, whether they appreciate it or not. So I won't be influenced by the lobbies and et cetera, et cetera. But I don't know that it's appreciated really by the voters. I'm the only one on both sides that's self-funding. I'm putting up my own money. And I don't know that the voters appreciate it. When they go in to vote, I don't think they say, I'm going to vote for Trump because he's self-funding and he's not going to be influenced by lobbies and special interests, etc. I tell them, and sometimes they like it, but I don't think it's something they vote for, which is a shame because it's actually a very big thing.
Right, it's not worth it. I'm doing all this self-funding. It's not worth it, but I'm going to keep doing it. But I'm not getting any credit. It's exactly what I thought what the meaning was of that tweet. Now, he also, apparently I'm wrong when I posit that it was not the debate, skipping the debate last Thursday in Iowa that caused Trump's problems. He clearly thinks it is now. And I'm still, I know it's conventional wisdom to say so. The glitterati and the intelligentsia all think that Trump not appearing at the debate, instead doing his vets event, offended Iowa caucus goers who wanted to see him, wanted to hear him, and so forth. And so they lost some enthusiasm and didn't end up caucusing for Trump. And I always thought, as I said yesterday, that it was things that took place long before the debate that might have caused some people some problems. The way he was criticizing Cruz, the things he was saying about Cruz being mean and heartless and letting people die on the street because of health care and so forth. It sounded like the kind of criticism that Cruz would get from a Bernie Sanders, a socialist-type wacko, or Hillary Clinton. And I said, that's going to cause people to rethink some things here, I thought. But Trump is saying, no, he thinks that it's debate now. Could have been the debate that made him lose Iowa. This is again in Milford, New Hampshire last night before a campaign event. And a reporter said there's polling that shows that people who decided early tended to go with you, but folks that decided later didn't. Now, what that means is, by the way, the big final poll was that Des Moines Register poll that had Trump winning by 4. And it was also the poll that predicted a huge, big turnout. It didn't specify that, but if you looked at the data, there was no way their results could happen unless there was a big turnout. And another bit of conventional wisdom, big turnout, record turnout, was going to benefit Trump. Another aspect of the polling and conventional wisdom that was wrong by 180 degrees. The big turnout benefited Rubio and Cruz. It did not help Trump. Now, this business of being a late decider, what that really means is somebody made up their mind after the last poll. So the Des Moines Register poll takes place. When did they announce that? On a Friday? I forget the day, but there were days after that poll before the caucus. And so the poll results are announced and published, but then events continue to happen. And it's true, according to the polling data, the exit polls and so forth, people that made up their minds late tended to vote for Rubio or Cruz and turned away from Trump. And we believe this to the extent we believe people are honest in both entrance and exit polls. So we'll go with it because that's what's being reported. And it was that little tidbit of information that fed the conventional wisdom that, aha, it's the debate. Trump skipping the debate and doing his vets event. That's what caused the problem with late deciding voters. And here's Trump answering the question. Polling that shows people who decided early stayed with you, but people that decided later didn't.
I think it could have been the debate. I think some people were disappointed that I didn't go in the debate. If I had it to do again, I would have done the exact same thing. And the reason is, do you know why? Because I raised $6 million for the vets in 1 hour. So if I took a second place instead of a first place and could give the vets $6 million, I'll do that all day long.
Yeah, it probably was the debate, but I'd do it again. I'd blow off the debate again if the same set of circumstances popped up. Here's Trump unloading on the dishonest Ted Cruz during the campaign event. The two previous soundbites are prior to it with the drive-bys. Here is Trump during the campaign event unloading on Cruz.
Cruz comes out with an ad that I'm in favor of Obamacare. Can you believe this? These are dishonest people, these politicians. These are worse than real estate people in New York. Then he said, Ben Carson has quit the race the day of the election. Ben didn't quit the race. What kind of crap is this? No, it's honestly, really, really dishonest. And I think I know why. You know why? Because he was born in Canada. Happens to be a problem, folks. You watch. He gets the nomination, they're going to sue his ass off.
Whoa, it's still loaded for bear on the Canada angle. Still loaded for bear. The reason that Cruz participated in the fraud against Dr. Carson is because he's from Canada. And he knows it's a problem. Even as the Democrats are going to sue his ass off. Like I said, I'm quoting. So, dishonest Ben Carson quit the race. Hey, look, I found what to me is an obscure website, something I hadn't seen before, but there is apparently some evidence out there that the actual culprit here is the Carson campaign itself. The Carson campaign mentions that they are leaving and taking some time before New Hampshire and South Carolina and so forth. But beyond that, I mean, it really did start there, and then CNN got in the game. But this website says that if you really want to find out who got this whole ball rolling, you got to go to the Rubio campaign. Oh, yeah. Yeah, you got to go to the Rubio campaign to find out what really happened. And Rubio is not from Canada. He's from Cuba. USA Today has it's either a story or a column. I'm not sure which. Anyway, the point is it immoral to watch the Super Bowl? Guy posits we might all want to re-examine the morality of watching the Super Bowl and maybe not watch it because of concussions. And by watching the Super Bowl and watching the NFL, we are promoting the violence and mayhem resulting in brain dysfunction for most of the people that play. Kid you not. Details. What his name is, what's his name here? Dylan Gwynn. Dylan Gwynn. Again, I don't know if it's a column or a news story. It has to be a column. Anyway, we'll get to that. I just want to let you know there's all kinds of stuff percolating out there. Sarah Palin has weighed in on Facebook on what a lying sneak Ted Cruz is, on the way they have sought to defraud the Ben Carson campaign. It's getting thick out there. The first poll, what is it? The first post-Iowa poll in New Hampshire shows Trump plus 24. Now, I have to again share with you that which I shared yesterday. Predicted it. It's happening today. A bunch of conventional wisdom people, establishment media people are writing, and this is their hope. It has to be their hope. They're hoping that Trump finishing second blows all these polls that show him up 24, 25, whatever it is in New Hampshire, out of the water. They hope that finishing second destroys this winner myth. They're thinking that it's going to blow it sky high and that people in support of Trump in New Hampshire are not going to be able to maintain their support because the momentum's been lost. In furtherance of that, the liberal polling unit out of North Carolina, Public Policy Polling, has teased the results of a poll they're going to release tomorrow. They haven't released anything but this little tease. And the tease is that Trump's numbers in their poll in New Hampshire are much different now than they were prior to Trump losing in Iowa. So a lot of people are glomming on that. See, we knew this was going to happen. But meanwhile, before any of that happens, while all of that remains theory, it's what I told you yesterday is going to happen. Folks, it's amazing when you know how this stuff works, how you can spot what's phony and ignore it. Like all the days, all the months leading up to the Iowa caucuses was theory, prediction, some educated guess based on polling data. But look at how the absolute reality of everything was turned upside down after nothing more than an actual election providing actual hard votes, which gave us an actual hard result. It has changed the dynamic, but the cycle begins again because now New Hampshire comes up on Tuesday. Between now and then, the theorizing, the predicting, the analyzing based on the past, Iowa, has begun. People are going to tell you what they think is going to happen in New Hampshire because of what happened in Iowa. They'll produce some polling data to back up whatever their contentions are. Meanwhile, the campaigns reignite, go on at full speed, and everybody starts trying to tell you what it all means and what it's going to end up meaning and happening next Tuesday when nobody knows. And next Tuesday, we're going to have another hard dose of reality as we get another result. And that's going to upend a bunch of and most of what you are going to hear this week. And the process will continue again until the next election. And once you're able to spot the fluff, which you should be able to do because you have me guiding you through this intricately woven web of deceit, then it becomes even more interesting and more when you're able to identify the know-nothings masquerading as experts and so forth, and when you're able to identify the people that may really know what they're talking about and are worth paying attention, it becomes even more fun than it already is. Because what we're dealing with now is voyeurism. I mean, people that want to see people crash and burn, they're getting their wish. Others who want to see people triumph and come out of the ashes when it wasn't expected, they're getting their wish. Rand Paul, by the way, has announced he's out. He quit today. Going to go back now and focus on his senatorial reelection for Kentucky. All kinds of pressure now with Rubio, and this, by the way, this is not projection or wild guessery. Rubio's finish in Iowa has changed the dynamic in terms everybody's going to be loaded up against Rubio this week and in the debate on Saturday. Everybody. You have Jeb. You're going to have Christie. You're going to have Kasich. Every one of these, in addition to going after Cruz, but they're now going to add Rubio. Rubio's going to be the focus of it because Rubio has now won, if you want to express it loosely, Rubio has been named as the establishment enemy candidate. That you've got to take out Rubio in order to take out the Republican establishment. And Rubio is aware of this, and so it's fascinating to watch all these pieces come together. And we're going to have a lot of fun today, by the way, as all of this get the audio sound bites and some of your calls added into this, make sense of all this. By the end of the program today, you're going to have a pretty good feel for where this is headed the rest of the week. So don't go anywhere. Hang in there. Be tough. We will be right back. It's getting tight, folks. It's getting close out there. It's ratcheting it up. Great to have you back. Rush Limbaugh executing assigned host duties flawlessly. Zero mistakes. It's because I assign the host duties because I'm the host. So there can't be any mistakes. 800-282-2882 if you want to be on the program. Let's go back. Audio soundbite number 12. Keep things in context. Last night, Milford, New Hampshire, during a campaign event, Donald Trump unloading on Ted Cruz of Canada.
Cruz comes out with an ad that I'm in favor of Obamacare. Can you believe this? These are dishonest people, these politicians. These are worse than real estate people in New York. Then he said, Ben Carson has quit the race the day of the election. Ben didn't quit the race. What kind of crap is this? No, it's honestly, really, really dishonest. And I think I know why. You know why? Because he was born in Canada. Happens to be a problem, folks. You watch. He gets the nomination, they're going to sue his ass off.
It's actually a story from I can't remember what I put in various stacks. This is my bad here today. Trying to keep things organized. But it's a story out of Illinois. Some legal authority, might be the Supreme Court, the election board, somebody in Illinois has proclaimed Cruz entirely legal. He is a full-fledged American citizen. The point is that a court in liberal Democrat Illinois, the home of the Godfather, Rahm Emanuel, has proclaimed that Ted Cruz is an American and he's legally a citizen and he can run for president and so forth. So, not that there was ever any real doubt about it, but that doesn't mean that the Democrats won't go after Cruz in a lawsuit. I mean, there are lawsuits on Obama even now that he was born on Mars. And this whole thing is just an alien game, Area 51, Roswell, New Mexico, and so forth. So there's no doubt that Cruz is going to be sued. It's not going to stop anything. I mean, Mrs. Clinton may be indicted. It's not going to stop her. Crazy Bernie might be committed. It isn't going to stop him. But now we continue on with the audio soundbites. Here is Trump last night, same campaign event in Milford, New Hampshire. And he's reminding everybody how tough he's going to be on foreign policy here.
If we are attacked, somebody attacks us, wouldn't you rather have Trump as president if we're attacked? Oh, we'll beat the out of them. Anybody attacks us.
We are going to beat the excrement out of them. Nobody attacks us. Anybody attacks us, we're going to beat the excrement out of them. On the Today Show this morning, Matt Lauer said, I have to say, Savannah and Guthrie and I were talking. We had the chance to interview you when you were in Iowa on Monday. And we were both a little surprised at how understated and subdued you sounded on the air that morning. By the way, I've heard that Trump was sick. Had a bad cold, even the weekend leading in. Now, it's not sourced from Trump's people, by the way. I don't talk to Trump's people. I don't remember where I saw it, but I've seen a couple different places. He had a bad cold, a cough, and he was another reason why he might not have been all over the place over the weekend. Anyway, Matt Lauer is talking about, you were so humble in your speech after the caucus on Monday night. Did members of your team give you a hint at what might be coming and so forth? Did you know in advance?
No, I'm just trying to be a little bit more understated and statesmanlike. Some people like that, some people don't, actually. And no, I don't think so. Not at all. I mean, I think, when it comes to Iowa, I was not supposed to even go there. A lot of people thought that I wouldn't do well in Iowa, and I made a decision to go because I know some of the people, and they're great people, and I came in second, which is a good finish. I mean, you have 11 people, and you started off with 17, and I came in second.
Right. So it's a more statesmanlike and more subdued posture that Trump is attempting to assume here. Trying to be a little bit more understated and statesmanlike. That's from the Today Show this morning. Ted Cruz has apologized for spreading the rumor that Ben Carson was dropping. I actually apologized to Dr. Carson. Ted Cruz apologized for his campaign statements made on the day of the Iowa caucus, implying that Carson was dropping out of the race. Last night, when our political team saw the CNN post saying Dr. Carson was not carrying on to New Hampshire and South Carolina, our campaign updated to grassroots leaders just as we would with any breaking news story. It's fair game. What the team should have done is send around the follow-up statement from the Carson campaign clarifying that he was indeed staying in the race when that came out. That was a mistake from our end, and for that I apologize to Dr. Carson. This is an even more direct apology than what I reported to you yesterday, but it doesn't look like it's enough to satisfy Dr. Carson. During an appearance on the Fox Business Network's After the Bell, Dr. Carson responded to Cruz's apology. He said, as Christians, of course, we accept people's apologies. We also have to ask ourselves, is this acceptable to us, the American people? Or should there be some accountability, Cruz added. There should be some consequences for things. You don't just say, oh, okay, sorry, okay, let's move on. The damage was done to me. It wasn't done to them. So, what's he saying? That Cruz ought to fire some people? Dr. Carson wants heads to roll. I guess my idea didn't get any traction. Cruz should offer Dr. Carson a couple delegates. I'm shocked. I'm shocked. I thought that would have been a great compromise here. Whoever does that before? I mean, just give a couple delegates. Sorry, Dr. Carson, I did. Of course, then I can see the problem. If you offer a couple delegates and Dr. Carson, no, I want all 5. Then you've got a negotiation. Yeah, I understand that. But look at the magnanimity of offering a couple of delegates as a peace offering. I mean, it's not like offering $24 for Manhattan, but nevertheless, it's a deal. And I know that's why it probably isn't going to happen. He's going to need those delegates toward the end. You never know. And then there's this from Breitbart. Republican presidential candidate Dr. Ben Carson alleged there is a culture within Cruz's campaign that led some of his supporters to falsely claim that Carson had dropped out during the Iowa caucus on Tuesday's O'Reilly factor. By the way, I was mentioned on the O'Reilly factor last night, too, and we have that coming up. Well, I had a caller yesterday. There's a lot of callers here calling about Fox News lately. We had one yesterday, and I explained to them, like the callers, they're not conservative anymore. They're not conservative like I remember them. Used to be able to put in all they do is just criticize conservatives. And I sought to explain that, why that happens. And the O'Reilly factor aired that and, of course, promptly disagreed and brought in guests who disagreed and then unknowingly made my point. So we will share that with you as the program unfolds. But Carson was on the O'Reilly factor, said he'd talked to Cruz. He says that he didn't know anything about what the campaign did, meaning that's what Cruz told Carson. And Carson says, I have to accept at his word that he didn't know, because he said if he'd known, he would have not agreed to do such a thing, meaning tweet out that Carson was leaving the campaign. Now, Carson later said a culture exists within the Cruz campaign that would allow people to take advantage of a situation like this in a very dishonest way. This is the kind of stuff we see with the Obama administration, the IRS scandal, no responsibility. Well, let's see what, in fact, the Cruz campaign will do about those people who inappropriately disseminated this information, knowing that the caucus was not over. Here comes Sarah Palin, endorser of Donald Trump, on Facebook. Dirty politics. Witnessing firsthand, it's always heartbreaking, never surprising. She writes, thank heavens Donald Trump opened so many eyes to the lies, corruption, and total lack of accountability that comes so naturally to the permanent political class. And Senator Ted Cruz was spot on when he once noted that millions of Americans are asking for accountability and truth, which is why it's so curious, Sarah Palin writes, and why it saddens us. This lack of accountability with the lies of Cruz's own campaign. Cruz's campaign chairman, U.S. Representative Steve King, is lying, and good for Ben Carson for calling this out. King, who's previously asked for and received my endorsement, says Palin, time and resources to support his own election, says Palin, is still lying about my altruistic support for Mr. Trump, and he's refused to provide any evidence to the contrary. And this U.S. congressman actually lied to his own constituents on behalf of Cruz regarding a good man, Dr. Carson. He told voters that Carson was dropping out of the presidential race immediately before the Iowa caucus, causing a relative uproar inside the process. So the word would spread, and he could rack up more votes for his candidates. Cruz, that's a dirty trick. Dr. Carson deserved better. The voters deserve better. Where's the accountability for these political actions? Very sad. Typical Washington tactics. This is why the status quo's got to go. That's Sarah Palin chiming in, dumping on Cruz and Steve King and the campaign for the dire mistreatment of Dr. Carson. And over here, was Marco Rubio guilty in the Ben Carson dropout rumor? I'll tell you what this says after this. Just got an email here during the break. Dear Rush, I'm missing something here. In this outrage, I'm missing something in this outrage directed at Cruz. Trump, Palin, Carson, all sound whiny to me. What in the world do they think they're doing? What business are they in here? Folks, maybe that describes some of you. The aspect of this. What it means, look, Cruz is the front runner. And this is apparently the only way they can go after it. I guess they don't think they can go after him on issues. I guess they don't see any other way to go. You know they're going to go after the front runner. I mean, it's the name of the game here. Now, it does matter, I think, what you go after the front runner on. You do run the risk of sounding, I don't know, whiny. I don't know what it is, but you got to realize what business you're in here. But if there were a way to solidly attack Cruz on issues or substance, I think they would do that too. And so far, it's just about whatever his campaign did with Dr. Carson. Now, ran across a website today, the first time. It's named Polistick, Politistick. And the writer here is Jennifer Burke. The headline, was Marco Rubio guilty in the Ben Carson dropout rumor? It begins this way. Senator Cruz has been the subject of brutal attacks all day by the Carson campaign. Prior to the beginning of the Iowa caucus, CNN reporter Chris Moody tweeted that Dr. Carson was leaving the campaign trail to return to Florida for some R&R. He then said that Carson would be in Washington for the National Prayer Breakfast, the event that put him on the map back in 2013. The Cruz campaign is accused of intentionally using dirty tricks against Carson during the Iowa caucus. Dr. Carson finished the night just over 9% of the vote. Cruz won it with 27.6%. Carson accuses Cruz of intentionally trying to undermine his campaign due to the actions of a grassroots leader involved with his campaign. But the one thing not being mentioned is the CNN report, which stemmed from an unclear statement sent out by the Carson campaign. This woman, Jennifer Burke, is actually saying, if you want to get to the bottom of this, what started it all? The Cruz camp didn't start it. There was a tweet out there. And her area of focus is the Carson campaign, backed up by CNN. Here's the Chris Moody tweet. This is exactly what CNN tweeted out at 5:43 p.m. on February 1st. This is before the caucus even started. Chris Moody, CNN, tweets, Carson won't go to New Hampshire or South Carolina, but instead will head home to Florida for some R&R. He'll be in D.C. Thursday for the National Prayer Breakfast. The doctor's campaign later clarified that Dr. Carson was not dropping out of the race, but merely returning to Florida to get a change of clothes. Dana Perino of Fox News said earlier on Tuesday such a decision by presidential candidate at this stage of the game is unheard of. Still, Cruz handled the accusation with class, issuing an apology. That entire apology is being framed as an admission of wrongdoing by Cruz himself. But what has not been said much throughout the day is that Florida Senator Marco Rubio's campaign worked actively to spread the message that Carson was leaving the race. These actions were reported by on Twitter by Conrad Close, who, according to his Twitter profile, is the managing editor of Outset magazine. Another interesting little tidbit about Conrad Close that he shouts from the rooftops with his Twitter profile is that he is Team Rubio, with the statement below his picture, "I'm voting for Marco Rubio." His tweet at 6:29 p.m. on February 1st, before the caucus had begun, Rubio campaign pushing the narrative hard that Carson is dropping out, obviously looking to pick up votes for Carson. That's a tweet from a guy named Conrad Close, who identifies a young guy. He identifies himself as a Rubio supporter and is the managing editor of something called Outset magazine, conservative journalist and communications guy fighting to make a difference for God and country is how he describes himself in his Twitter profile. Managing editor Outset, occasionally tries to save the world, lives in Georgia. And he tweeted out at 6:30, Rubio campaign pushing the narrative hard that Carson is dropping out, obviously looking to pick up votes from Carson. And that's gone. They pulled that down, but their screenshot was grabbed of it in time. And there's more. So the plot thickens here, ladies and gentlemen, but it's still politics. It's not romper room, but that's, we live in a country where many millennials think it is romper room, folks. That's a problem with our education system. And another story. We'll be back. No. I get it. I mean, Cruz wins Iowa by stressing his ethics and his honesty and religion, so I can understand him going after all this. But you gotta... just sit tight, folks. We, not stopping, rolling right on when we get back. Yeah. Here we go. All right. Here we go. Greetings, my friends. Welcome back. Great to have you. Rush Limbaugh here on the cutting edge of societal evolution. The telephone number, if you want to be on the program, is 800-282-2882. And those of you on hold, please be patient. I'll get to you. Start on the phones as soon as I can in this hour. I was telling Mr. Snerdley yesterday, it's just an observation. It's not meant to comment on anything or anybody else. And I was just telling Mr. Snerdley that if I did have guests on this show, I don't know where I would squeeze them in. I can't fathom it. We never have that. I mean, I haven't taken a call yet. And I'm going to have to make a concerted effort to make time for that. Because we barely scratched the surface on all the stuff that I want to touch on today. And there's stuff beyond the world of politics, like that Super Bowl story. USA Today trying to guilt trip people into not watching it because you're promoting the concussion culture that has taken over the NFL. And you, by watching it and buying the products of the sponsors and so forth, you are encouraging and promoting the great harm occurring to NFL players. It's amazing. And it's exactly the kind of stuff that I knew was coming years ago when this full-fledged assault on football began. Anyway, there's that. There's other things out there. It was, by the way, the Illinois Board of Elections that has declared Ted Cruz a natural-born citizen. The state's Board of Elections ruled that Cruz met the citizenship criteria to appear on the ballot in Illinois. Two state residents, William Graham and Lawrence Joyce, had challenged Cruz's eligibility with the board, claiming his name should not appear on the primary ballot on March 15th because his candidacy did not comply with Article 2 of the Constitution. The Board of Elections in Illinois told those two guys to go pound sand. Is he at that thing now? He is. Obama's at the mosque. Is that he chose a mosque in Baltimore. And it's a big deal. First president ever to visit a mosque in America. And he's saying this mosque, like so many, is an all-American story. What did I read? That it's one of the most extreme mosques in the country? If so, doesn't surprise me at all. I want to go back to this allegation of cheating and fraud against Senator Cruz on this business of trying to take advantage of a confusing tweet from the Carson campaign about leaving Iowa and going back to Florida. And that tweet, by the way, the original tweet was a CNN tweet. And the original CNN tweet, it was not a Carson campaign tweet. It was not a Cruz campaign tweet. The CNN tweet that got everybody going on this happened at 5:43 on Monday, which is, I think, it's Central Time. So it'd be an hour and 15 minutes before the caucuses began. And it's a tweet from Chris Moody, CNN. Carson won't go to New Hampshire or South Carolina, but instead will head home to Florida for some R&R. And then he'll be in D.C. on Thursday for the National Prayer Breakfast. That tweet was then assumed to mean something, or at least somebody sought to take advantage of it and have it mean something. Now, I have a question. And the question is, how many votes was Dr. Carson denied because of this fraud? I have here in my formerly nicotine-stained fingers the vote totals on the Republican side from the Iowa caucuses. Ted Cruz, more votes than any Republican has ever received in the Iowa caucus, 51,666. Donald Trump, 45,427. Marco Rubio, 43,165. Here are the delegates. Ted Cruz, 51,000 votes, 8 delegates. Donald Trump, 45,000 votes, 7 delegates. Marco Rubio, 43,000 votes, 7 delegates. Ben Carson, 17,395 votes, and 3 delegates. Now, my question is, in order for Dr. Carson to have caught Marco Rubio and tied him for third place, there would have had to have been a change of 25,000 votes in both directions. So Carson would have to win 12,500 and Rubio would have to lose 12,500. Or any combination thereof equal 25,000, because Carson needed 25,000 votes in order to tie Rubio. His total was 17,395. Does anybody believe that Ben Carson was cheated out of 25,000 votes because of this fraud? Well, we don't know, but the polling data. Remember now, the last poll that everybody trusted, the Des Moines Register poll, before the caucuses began, had Trump up by 4, Cruz in second place, Rubio in third place, and Carson in fourth place, and then everybody after that didn't matter. Carson at 9%, Rand Paul at 5%, and then 3, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, and 1. So aside from the positions of Cruz and Trump, the poll was accurate. So had nobody tweeted that Carson was leaving the race, had nobody tweeted, hey, you don't need to vote for Carson, he's getting out of the race, would he have somehow ended up with 25,000 more votes? Can you see it? We will never know. Obviously, the Trump campaign and the Carson campaign are going to try to make the case that it is entirely possible that Ben Carson got shafted out of 25,000 votes. I mean, they practically have to if they're going to go forward with this and make it the big cause that it happens to be. Now, I happened to mention a previous half hour that I happened to be discussed on the Fox News channel last night. It's 3 sound bites here, and I want to get into them. The premise was based on a phone call that I received yesterday. It's one of many I get, and you've heard them, and countless emails. And, not just emails and phone calls. When I'm just out and about, people mention things like this to me. But we had a caller yesterday. Raj, Fox News just doesn't seem as conservative anymore. I don't know. They're always attacking conservatives. They're attacking, and suddenly they've got all these liberals on there now, these analysts, and they're experts or whatever, strategists, and just they're always going after conservatives now. And I like that debate, and I just don't understand. What does it mean? And so I sought to explain to yesterday's caller what I thought the explanation for this was. Bill O'Reilly aired that and then began a discussion of it with Katie Pavlich, who is the editor of townhall.com. So here is O'Reilly setting it up.
Yesterday, Rush Limbaugh said this.
I think Fox is burdened with this belief that everybody in the media thinks they're conservative, and they don't want to be thought of that way. So they will purposely hit conservatives hard to show that they are not friends and not biased in favor of conservatives.
Now, speaking for myself, I hit everybody hard if that's necessary, and that's the way the media should cover politics.
Okay, so that's O'Reilly playing the soundbite clip of me and then reacting to it. And the point is, by the way, yesterday's not the first time I've said this. I'm blue in the face saying it. I think it's true not just to Fox. I mean, hell, it explains half the behavior pattern of the GOP establishment. They're tired of what people think of them and want to correct them or disabuse them of the notion. And you get inside these capitals, the Washingtons, the New Yorks, inside these places, and the culture where the left runs them. The Democrats run both the corporate and social culture in these towns. And I don't have any doubt that being accused of being conservative is not cool. To a lot of people. No. And so to demonstrate that they're fair, I don't think it's really trying to demonstrate they're not conservative. I think the better way of saying it is that there are some people at Fox, and I don't know that it's a corporate thing. I just think some people think that if they go after conservatives, that they'll be seen as fair and not in the tank for anybody. No more complicated than that. And I think it's true of not just of people in the media or at Fox, but if you ever encounter conservative on conservative crime, so to speak, I think one of the explanations is that whoever is doing the criticizing is attempting to curry favor with whoever the power structure where they live is, so that they will not be lumped in with all these crazy, wacko, pro-life conservatives and so forth. So anyway, Riley said, no. Speaking for myself, I hit everybody, if that's necessary. Katie Pavlich, townhall.com, brought on. O'Reilly said, Katie, what do you think about Mr. Limbaugh's statement?
I think that he's wrong. Fox News is exactly that. It is a news outlet. We provide the news. Megyn Kelly, of course, is one of those people who's been in the news a lot for asking a certain candidate a question that their supporters didn't like. Fox News anchors and reporters aren't purposely going after conservatives. They're simply asking questions about their records and about their positions, and that is called journalism. It's not about purposely going after them to somehow prove that they're not conservative. Journalists here are simply doing their job.
O'Reilly says, if you ask somebody's candidate that they're supporting a tough question, and they don't like that because on talk radio, the host favors somebody, and they're not skeptical of that person.
Conservative audiences in general have been complaining for years about the mainstream media being biased towards their presidential candidates, Senate candidates. You can't complain about the media not holding Barack Obama accountable, for example, but then also complain when journalists at Fox News or at other outlets are asking Republicans some similar questions about their positions.
What, didn't they just make my point there? Didn't they sort of in a circuitous way make my point? They want to be known tough on both sides. They want to be known as being able to be tough on both sides. But nobody at NBC or CBS or ABC or CNN worries about that. Does anybody ever get mad at CNN for the way they might go after, say, Bill de Blasio? Have you ever heard it happen? Have you ever heard anybody complain at CNN about the way they go at Michael Moore? Take your pick of whoever. It doesn't happen, does it? I don't think it's a complicated thing here at all. What O'Reilly's point is, we're in broadcast news. We do not have chosen sides, chosen candidates. We do not have favorites, but talk radio does. Talk radio is the hosts always favor somebody, and they're never skeptical. They're not skeptical of that person. Au contraire, I think talk radio holds more people accountable, and in a tougher way than you'll find in a whole host of places. But anyway, that's what it was. People were curious about it. Now we're going to take a time out. We'll get to your calls, as I promised, so don't go away. Folks, also coming up, there are a couple of, what? Oh, yeah. I'm going to address the Rubio thing, of course. Yes. Yes, of course, it's part of the mix. But I've got a couple of really fascinating, people are still analyzing the Trump phenomenon. Victor Davis Hanson, National Review, has a really, really good piece today on that. There's also a great piece here from the News Oklahoma, News OK website, about a professor at the University of Oklahoma who tackles the subject of explaining why millennials and college students and young people are attracted to Bernie Sanders. It's the age-old question, what is it about socialism that's so seductive? It's a demonstrable fraud. It has never worked. And the evidence is right in front of everybody's face now. 7 years of applied concentrated socialism. Doesn't work. So why does it still attract people? This guy is obviously a lone wolf on the faculty at Oklahoma because he's blaming education. He says that the attraction to socialism, and this makes sense, but his points here are unique, and I want to share them with you, that the attraction to socialism can be found in education. Now, I know that may seem like, well, of course, Rush, no big deal there, but it's interesting the way he gets there in this piece. And there's one other thing here that is besides the Victor Davis Hanson piece. It's a David French piece in National Review about Rubio and the establishment and so forth. So that and much else still ahead, but we go to the phones now. We're going to start with Jimmy in Toms River, New Jersey. And as always, I really appreciate your patience in waiting. How are you?
You must be kidding with the patience part. I got to tell you, your call screener told me to keep the butt kissing at a minimum, but I have to tell you, it's a true honor to speak to you. You've been an inspiration to me through a lot of hard times, and
keep the butt kissing.
A lot about life, and I really do mean that, Rush. It's not just the obligatory metaditos.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I really do.
I got a couple of quick points. First, about the Iowa polls, which will lead into my main point. When you look at it and analyze those polls, Cruz's number was about where most of the polls shows he was going to be, anywhere between 24 to 25 to 26. He ended up at 27. Where they were off was obviously Trump's number, but that leads me into this. Rubio, the massive turnout, really, if you look at it, went to Rubio. There was a massive turnout. Whether it was a true just absolute, I have to vote for Rubio, or another reason, which I think it was another reason, and I'm going to get to now. I've been a Trump guy from the beginning, Rush. I'm one of those angry people. I grew up in abject poverty with abusive parents, and Ronald Reagan told me I can be different, that where I came from is not where I can end up, and this country has afforded me things and lets me do things that I can only imagine. And I've also supported the Republican Party, and it slapped me in my face. I had 2 landslide Senate victories that did nothing but get them to capitulate to Obama.
Okay, wait a minute. I'm getting off the road here. You were a Trump supporter?
Yes, I was.
Okay, and
because I'm one of those angry males.
Right, so you were an angry guy, and you wanted everybody to know how mad you were, that things were going wrong, and you think there's all kinds of stuff, and you like the fact that Trump was a vessel for your anger. Is that right?
Exactly, and I was willing to overlook the fact that really any honest person has to say he is not a Reagan conservative or a traditional conservative.
Okay, so are you...
overlook that.
Okay, but you're in New Jersey, so you didn't vote in the Iowa caucus, but you wanted about Rubio and where his numbers came from.
Well, what my overall point is I think what happens is this. The anger can only last so long, okay? I'm angry about the things that I mentioned, and, I'm angry at the fact that I was laid off 8 months ago, and I'm weeks away from being homeless after raising 2 kids since I was 16 and coming from nothing. But the anger can only last so long, and hearing him constantly talk about the Canada thing, even after he lost, which anybody of any type of conscience has to look at why you lost and humble you a bit and lead you in a different direction. He still harps on the Canada thing.
Now, wait a minute. I just want to make sure that Trump has lost you because he won't get off this Canada thing?
It's not the Canada thing overall. It's starting to seem like his anger is disingenuous, and he's angry for anger's sake, not just angry for principles. He's angry because it sells something. I don't want to be sold anything anymore. I was sold something by the mainstream Republican Party that obviously was proven to be a lie over and over again. I don't want to be sold anymore, and it's starting to think that this whole anger with him is not for the reasons that he tends to let out. It's more for this is what they're going to buy.
Are you? Let me jump in here. Jimmy, time is dwindling, and part of our phone system is such that we actually can't have a conversation. That's why I have to sound like I'm interrupting you. But are you saying that Trump's anger, while you think is legitimate, is not? He doesn't understand why you're mad, and therefore you don't think that he really gets it, and he's just being angry now because he thinks that's what's attracting people to him?
100%. Like I said, again, I worked hard all my life, okay? I was laid off 8 months ago. I don't want anybody to give me nothing. But I've searched out opportunities for days and days. My savings is gone. Everything is gone. And there's no opportunities anymore.
Right.
There's not a chance for me to start work and get somewhere anymore. But
okay, I have to run. I'm out of time. I'm frustratedly out of time. By the way, the NFL story in the USA Today, just to tell you, again, it's a story claiming that we all ought to not watch the Super Bowl because we all have collective guilt over the concussion phenomenon happening to players. It's our fault, and watching it furthers the occurrence of concussions and so forth. In addition, that accompanies that, I don't know if you've heard it yet or not, but they just apparently, I don't know if an autopsy or a study, but they announced that Kenny Stabler of the Oakland Raiders had CTE. He died of cancer not long ago at a young age. Stabler was always a renegade, a maverick. He was, some might say crazy, like a lot of the Raiders in his era were. Now, all of a sudden, guess what? Stabler had CTE. This is what is resulting from concussions, the lesions on the brain that explain suicidal behavior a la Junior Seau. And the latest to be added to this is O.J. Simpson. O.J. Simpson had CTE. So the anti-concussion forces, anti-NFL, are gearing up here in Super Bowl week to take advantage of the attention of the game to get their political point of view about football out there. Kenny Stabler and O.J. Simpson. And there happens to be a special that started last night, a special, it's a 10-episode series on the FX network, American Crime Story, the O.J. Simpson story or whatever, based on a book written about O.J. Simpson and the murders of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman, based on Jeffrey Toobin's book. That premiered last night on FX. And now we're finding out, hey, maybe it wasn't O.J.'s fault. O.J. was sick. O.J. Simpson had CTE. They're speculating that he might have had CTE. They've announced that Stabler did. Now, as to our last caller, it depends. Folks, the phone system here is weird, and it happens most of the time when people are on a cell phone. You ever used a speakerphone where you can't talk to who you're talking to until you shut up, and while you're speaking, they can be shouting, and you will not hear them? That's the way the phone system is here for some reason on cell phones. I was unable to talk to the guy. I had to just keep shouting at him until he stopped talking and took a breath, is when he could hear me. But what I was able to get out of it, what I was able to put together was, he was originally a Trump supporter because he thought Trump's anger was exactly what's needed. And he was detailing his lot in life, how he started out and lost everything, became a Reaganite and so forth, believes in America, and he's angry at all of the destructions taking place in the country. And he thought Trump was just ideal, and he's out of the Trump support window now. He has abandoned Trump. Those are my words, not his, but he said he's over it. And the reason is he doesn't think that Trump's anger is genuine. That's when he was talking about, he thinks Trump's anger is a sales technique. And what convinced him of this is he doesn't understand why after the election, after it's all over in Iowa, why he's still continuing to go after Cruz and the Canada angle. To him, this is what he was saying, as a Trump supporter, it doesn't make any sense. To him, nobody would really be mad about that. It doesn't make sense to be that mad about whether somebody might be Canadian or not. So that was his point. That's what he was aiming at, and we were able to dissect it for you during the break. Now back to the phones. Joel in Coconut Creek, Florida. It's great to have you with us, sir. Hello.
Hey, Rush. It's an honor to be with you.
Thank you, sir.
Trump started off his whole campaign with the signature issue of immigration, about the wall and putting the big, beautiful door in the middle of it. And that's, he really got everybody fired up with that. And, if you look at the list of candidates that we have, you'd have to say Rubio's the shakiest on immigration. Since he's announced, whether it's in the debates or in tweets or, whenever he gets a chance, he's gone after everybody. Even people that were lower in the polls all along.
Wait. Who, Rubio or Cruz is going after, or Trump is going after everybody?
Trump.
Right.
And now it's basically exclusively Cruz. My question for you, I wanted to know what you thought about this, is I was thinking about it, and I don't remember a time that Trump ever has gone after Rubio about really anything, and specifically on immigration. You would think, if that's his number one issue and he garnered a lot of support that way, why hasn't he gone after Rubio one time on immigration?
Well, Rubio has never been the front runner, but don't forget that for a long period of time, in practically all of December and much of January, I'd say the first half of January, Trump and Cruz had what looked like a mutual admiration society going. They were not, Cruz was pointedly not criticizing Trump. The theory when that was happening was, this is when everybody was still of the belief, well, not everybody, the consultant class, the donor class, the establishment, all thought or hoped or were praying that Trump would implode. Cruz was behaving and covering his bases in the event that did happen. He wanted to get Trump's voters there, and Trump's voters are a very passionate lot, and they're intolerant of any criticism of Trump. And they're not very tolerant of people that don't energetically support Trump. So Cruz said not a word about Trump. And Trump, by the same token, wasn't saying much about Cruz. Cruz was not the front runner while all this was going on. Trump was. Then when Cruz all of a sudden began to move and then ended up being tied and ahead of Trump, then here came Trump going after Cruz, starting out on Canada. Now, I think if I'm right, you're going to see everybody in this race going after Rubio this week. Everybody. Christie, Jeb Bush, Rand Paul would have if he would have stayed in. Kasich. They are going to dump on Rubio like Rubio has not been dumped on before. And I think Trump is going to do so as well. But Trump is also going to focus on Cruz because Cruz won Iowa. And in Trump's world, that's illegitimate. That wasn't supposed to happen, even though particularly the last poll going into Iowa said Trump was going to win by 4 points. This is a matter of honor. And so Trump is always going to focus on Cruz or whoever happens to win a primary or be leading the pack in the polls should something like that happen. Now, just to reiterate, the first poll taken in New Hampshire, TV station poll, since the Iowa caucus has Trump up plus 24, which is pretty much consistent with where he was before Iowa. Now, this is, again, folks, it's depending on where you go in the media, you can find people, probably already have, speculating that, well, I'll tell you what you're going to see, because I've seen it now. There are stories out there already asking, has Trump's support never really been as high as the polls say it is? And this question's being asked because of the Iowa result. It's being asked by people who work at networks that put out these polls. You have expert analysts at blogs, network websites, wherever, that are now asking the question, maybe these polls have always been overstating Trump support. Could that possibly be? You've got other stories that, well, this loss changes everything. Now this takes the momentum away from Trump. He's not the winner that he was. I'm sure you've heard this if you've been watching TV. You probably, in fact, I bet you've seen that, and every network has people just, I mean, the schadenfreude is incredible. They're so happy Trump lost, and they're snarky about it. They're out there saying, yeah, Trump, winner, 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 never lose, right? Gonna win, win, win. Well, you lost, Trump, you lost. And you just feel the anger dripping off the TV screen when these people get going. Because they have been so frustrated, they couldn't explain it, they didn't understand it, and they're so gleeful, and they hope this means that none of these Trump numbers are real. Except here comes a New Hampshire TV station today, basically confirming that he's plus 24 after Iowa. So he's going to continue to go after Cruz because Cruz is the front runner. Cruz has committed a crime. He won. Nobody's supposed to do that when Trump's involved. Somebody does that, there has to be some illegitimate explanation. Like he's from Canada, or he cheated with Dr. Carson, or what have you. And as our previous caller said, he's losing me on this. I don't understand anger at Canada. I don't understand. The anger ought to be at what's happening in the country. It's kind of a variation of what I said. Ted Cruz is nobody's enemy right now. The enemy, everybody's enemy, ought to be Barack Hussein Obama and Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders and anybody in the Democrat Party. They are responsible for this. And those in the Republican Party who've made no serious effort to stop it. But Ted Cruz is not one of those. No, I'm dead serious about this. But I know these campaigns, this is a primary, and technically it's not about the Democrats. I think it should be. I think it's a winning strategery to go after the Democrats. The Democrats are the reason we're in this mess. The Democrats are the reason why the Republican primary is shaping up the way it is. But short answer to your question, I think Trump is going to be hitting on Rubio at some point. Christie has already started So I think Rubio, you know what Rubio should do? Change his name to Bush. Or change his name to Obama, and Christie would love him. Go in there, get a name change right now, and just change his name to Marco Obama. And Christie might want a photo op, you never know. I'm being facetious, ladies and gentlemen. But I think Trump's going to be hitting everybody that's close. Rubio's got the momentum now, as defined by the media. Rubio's where all the interest is right now. It always happens. You have this winner, and the winner was a surprise because Trump was supposed to be the winner. But Rubio was thought maybe, if lucky, to barely finish in third place. But he wasn't supposed to end up within 1,000 votes of the Trumpster. So you stay right here, folks, and we will sort all of this stuff out for you happily, minute by minute and day by day. Sticking with the phones, this is Bob in Waldorf, Maryland. Hey, Bob, great to have you, sir. Hi.
Hello, Rush. How you hitting them?
Very well, very well. Well, actually, I finished with 3 birds and a net bird Saturday, last 4 holes. It was a fabulous round.
Oh, stop it, man. You're killing me. Snowing up here. Look, I wanted to talk to you about Trump. I've heard him talk about how, for every reason, making every excuse he could possibly make for why he lost. But I haven't heard him say anything about the comment I heard him make, how he was going to make deals with Pelosi and Reid and, you know, get along with the Democrats. And, I mean, we already have enough liberal Republicans making deals with the Democrats. I sort of think and hope that hurt him. I mean, to me, the more he talks, the more he exposes himself as a liberal Republican.
Who are you for now?
Oh, I'm for Cruz.
Okay, and you've been for Cruz from the outset?
Yeah, pretty much. I've enjoyed watching Trump poke him in the eye and give him the business and everything, but, I mean, he's not saying anything. Right? Your first caller, I think, pretty much nailed it. He reminds me of a used car salesman.
Wow, this is a different tone that we're hearing here.
Well, I mean, it just when he said that, I mean, the problem, from what I see, you know, it's Republicans making deals with Democrats. They're selling out the American worker, Russ. They're killing us out here.
Well, let me say, when he said that, I thought it was a problem. And I mentioned it again yesterday. You know, everybody's figuring out what happened to Trump. He was leading by 4 in a respected poll in Iowa. And you can't find a poll where he wasn't finishing first. There were 2 or 3 maybe showing Cruz winning in Iowa during the month of January. But it's been Trump's race. And everybody's not rushed the debate, not showing up at the debate. That's what did it. And I said, well, man, everybody thinks that. But I don't. I think it was his health care statements that he made on TV Sunday, which might have confused people. And I remember that was part of his criticism of Cruz. I think you chalk it up to what I call ideological awareness. And he's out making the point that he's great at negotiating deals. He wins. America is going to win. We've got idiots doing our deals now. Idiots doing deals with the Chicans. Idiots doing deals with the Iranians. I'm going to do great deals because that's what I do. Nobody does deals better than me. So he has that as a foundation. Then it's time to criticize Cruz. And what does he know about Cruz? He knows that the Senate hates Cruz because Cruz is not cooperative with the leadership. Cruz has made a name for himself by calling out his own leadership. So in Trump's world, doing deals, winning negotiations, stomping people, that's the measure of success. He's going after Cruz as unable to do that. And he happens to glom onto the fact, look, Cruz could never make a deal with those guys. They hate him. They despise him in the Senate. And it is, I think, the ideological lack of awareness that doesn't inform Trump that criticism of Ted Cruz, that he won't do deals with the Democrats, that's his supporters do not want deals done with Democrats. His supporters are with him because they are tired of doing deals with Democrats. Trump's supporters want the Democrats and everybody else responsible for this mess defeated, not negotiated with. But he thought in saying that he was ripping Cruz, because that was the objective, to discredit Cruz, particularly in an area where he, Trump, thinks there's nobody better. And if he were more aware of why the Republican base is ticked off at its own party, then he would probably not have talked about how accomplished and successful he would be with Schumer and Pelosi and so forth. My take. Take it or leave it. We have to run out of time. Be back after this. Don't go away. Wow, it really is the fastest 3 hours in media. It really... I can't believe we only have one to go. I'm already getting worried I can't squeeze everything in that I want to do. How does anybody have time for guests? I will never understand it. I don't know. I really... Meeting and surpassing all audience expectations every day. I am Rush Limbaugh, and this is the Limbaugh Institute for Advanced Conservative Studies. It's great to have you here as always. Telephone number if you want to be on the program, 800-282-2882, and the email address, lrushbaugh@eibnet.com. I didn't comment on this when it happened, and I'm glad I waited. John Kasich, did you see he was endorsed by the New York Times? Well, yeah, you should see Snerdley's reaction. Oh, yes, in the Boston Globe, too. Yeah, I knew. That didn't surprise me at all. See, that's the thing. The endorsement of the New York Times, John, did not surprise me at all, nor does the Boston Globe endorsing Kasich surprise me in the slightest. That's not the news. That's not the story. John Kasich is staking his entire... I'm reading to you here from one of the many stories about that today. I didn't, when it printed, it didn't print the website. I don't remember what... It's a credible one. It's not some kook place. I just don't know what it is. Doesn't matter. John Kasich staking his entire campaign on New Hampshire. And perhaps for the first time this election cycle, he had the entire Granite State political world to himself this weekend and was loving it. As he was there and everybody else was in Iowa. Camped out there, New Hampshire, Kasich waltzed his way through his 82nd, 83rd, 84th, 85th, and 86th town halls. He's done that many town halls in New Hampshire, and he did 5 of them over the weekend, Saturday and Sunday. Perhaps the first Republican to hug and kiss an endorsement from that newspaper, Kasich thanked the New York Times repeatedly in these town halls. Now, wait. Kasich thanked the New York Times repeatedly and honed in on one sentence in particular at the town halls. And he's hyping himself, and he's telling people who he is and what's going on. And the sentence in the New York Times endorsement editorial that Kasich quotes is this: and Mr. Kasich is no moderate. As governor, he's gone after public sector unions, he's fought to limit abortion rights, and opposed same-sex marriage. Kasich also got the endorsement of the Boston Globe and 7 out of 8 newspapers in New Hampshire, per his own count. He emphasized the endorsements to voters in these town halls with the same empathetic finesse that he weaves into other centrist pitches that can be unpopular with conservatives. And here he is, talking to a crowd at Salem, New Hampshire on Sunday. I guess he's Q&A, and a guy's asked him a question, and Kasich says, and then, sir, yesterday I got endorsed by the New York Times. A couple days ago, I was in my room and I thought about all of this and I cried. It's amazing to come from where I came from and have these wonderful things said about me. Speaking to reporters after his Salem event, Kasich repeated that it was a lovely editorial where they said, Kasich certainly not a moderate, but he knows how to get things done and bring people together. I like that. So he cried. He admitted that he was in his room, and I'm sure he was being very introspective. Some people go into their solitude and take stock of where they are. Many people do that, actually. And he was in the process of doing that, and the fact that the New York Times endorsed him brought him to tears. He cried. And then it's amazing to come from where I came from and have these wonderful things said about me. A reporter tweeted that Chris Christie's camp did not even accept a meeting with the New York Times editorial board. The New Jersey governor's team later circulated an email with the subhead, "The New York Times endorsement further proves that John Kasich is a liberal's idea of what a good Republican should look like." Earlier this week, America's Future Fund, a conservative super PAC, released an ad branding Kasich as an Obama Republican after highlighting his support of Common Core, Medicaid expansion, and tax increases. When he wasn't being asked about the New York Times, Kasich, who sometimes refers to himself as the Prince of Light and Hope, who has pitched himself as an optimistic consensus builder determined to keep his moral high ground by running a positive campaign, was questioned about his own campaign dabblings in negative approaches. Anyway, started crying over the wonderful aspects of being endorsed by the New York Times and thinking about, whoa, from where I've come from, he was man, his dad was a mailman. In McKees Rocks, Pennsylvania, which is just up the road from Heinz Field, if you know the geography there. McKees Rocks, McKeesport, those are both places you never admit that you've been, even. I'm just kidding. I have affection. My first job outside of town was at McKeesport. I was, or as the natives call it, it's a very Polish community. They call it Mekisport because they couldn't pronounce McKeesport. Mekisport. Anyway, I just found it. I don't know what I found it. Crying over a New York Times editorial and thinking how amazing it was to have these wonderful things said of us. To me, folks, that's not the to go seeking the approval of. I don't know. I don't want to be. I'm not trying to rain on Governor Kasich's parade. If it makes him happy, that's fine. I'm not trying to dump on it. I just found it, I don't know, odd. Some way, and I'm sure I'll hear about this, but I just did. Now let's move on to Marco Rubio. Let's go to the audio sound bites. As you know, on yesterday's program, I don't know, something. It was either a caller here or something I was reading in the news, something that happened on the program. I just reacted in a semi-visceral way to the idea that all of a sudden Marco Rubio has become this establishment candidate, which to me means that he's a rhino, a moderate Republican, tending toward even maybe a liberal Republican and all that. And that's just not who Marco Rubio is. To me, I think, made the point, analyzing the results in Iowa, that Rubio is heavily influenced by Reagan, as was Ted Cruz, as was Dr. Carson, 3 of the 4 top finishers in Iowa. And I think this is momentous. I think it's remarkable because the Republican Party establishment they're trying to tie Rubio to is actually the group that wants to get rid of Reagan and Reagan influences, the Reagan fetish. The era of Reagan is over. And I think Rubio's a Reaganite. Rubio is somebody whose life story And Rubio, is somebody whose ideology is much closer to Reagan than, say, a Mitt Romney or a McCain, or take your pick of whoever, Bob Dole, the establishment people happen to love. And I know that a lot of people are very nervous about Marco Rubio because of the Gang of Eight. And Rubio's out saying, don't think we have enough support in our party alone to get elected president. We're going to have to branch out. Some people look at Rubio as an interventionist in foreign policy, which to them means globalist. I understand the fears people have of Rubio, and I understand that the conservative contrast that can be made between Rubio and Cruz. There's no question that you can make that contrast, that one, Cruz is top to bottom, check mark after check mark after check mark, no doubt. Is Ted Cruz a conservative? And I understand Rubio's given people reason to be less confident. Gang of Eight bill alone, the argument over whether or not he does favor, ultimately, at the end of everything, amnesty. I understand all of that. I would too. If the New York Times came out and said this is the best talk show in the country, I would panic. I would think it's over. What am I doing wrong? That's exactly right. If the New York Times came out and started treating me the way they treat, I don't know, take your pick of any liberal personality or actor. If they started treating me that way, I'd say, what in the world did I do wrong? I would think it's about over if I'm being praised by the New York Times. It's exactly damn right. I know, I'm walking on eggshells all day today. I'm trying not to crack the eggs. But friends, at some point, I know we need to run against the establishment. I'm leading the charge. But Marco Rubio ain't them. Now, I don't doubt that they are trying to make him them. I don't doubt that they're putting pressure on him. They don't have anywhere else to go. Their guy isn't going to go anywhere. Their guy is Jeb. Then their next guy is Christie. They're not going anywhere. They've got to find somebody. And they're glomming onto Rubio. But let me tell you something. You know what really made it reality for me? I'm listening to people analyze Iowa, and they're tabulating the votes by percentage and leaving Rubio out when discussing the percentage of the Iowa caucus vote that went to conservatives. And they would say something like, and if you look at it, 51% of the caucus goers in Iowa tended to conservative. That would be the total of Cruz and Carson. And somehow Rubio got left out of that, that's what made me start scratching my head. How can you not count the support that Rubio got? Rubio is, as in many people's minds, is a conservative. He clearly is not a rhino. He's not the kind of Republican you think of when you hear establishment Republican. To me, anyway. And so I think you have to add the votes that Rubio got, the percentage that Rubio got. If you do that, you're well over 60% of the Hawkeye electorate that chose conservatism. Trump, you would not throw in that mix. Trump himself doesn't want to be identified that way, or it's not that he doesn't want to be, but that's not the angle from which he's coming. But that's the only point that I was trying to make here. We have a Politico story here. GOP establishment rallies behind Rubio. Top Republicans urging several of his rivals to drop out. And from Breitbart, Republican establishment candidates go full throttle after Rubio in New Hampshire. Republican establishment presidential candidates Bush, Kasich, and Christie have focused their fire on Marco Rubio as part of the GOP nominee's campaign. This is all about a quest for money. The donor class in this, I understand that, but when you get down to discussing ideology, I don't know. I don't know how else to say it. I know Rubio. He's I don't know these people intimately well. what you would call best friends with them, but I know them. I've spent a lot of time with them. I've spent a lot of time talking to them about any number of things, not just their careers and not just politics. But whereas Jeb Bush, I would have no qualm with anybody describing Jeb as establishment. He is the definition of it. He is the poster boy this year. I think the establishment really has nowhere to go. They've got to go get somebody here. Everyone in this race that the establishment, by that I mean the RNC, the GOP, the elites, inside the Beltway cadre, whatever. If they'd had their druthers, it'd be Jeb, and then after that it would be Christie, and then after that it would be, some of them might even want to glom onto Kasich. But Rubio is the last chance they've got to have a horse in the game. I don't know if Rubio wants to take it and run with it as that, but I'm just talking about in a vacuum. Vacuums don't exist, but Rubio just as he stands and is. I listened to his speech after the Iowa caucus. I did not hear somebody embarrassed of or afraid of conservatism, conservative ideology. I heard somebody, on the contrary, who understands it, who can articulate it cheerfully, happily, confidently. The idea to peg this guy as an establishment type, knowing what that really means, is just something that doesn't compute with me. But I'm not even finished with this. We've got some audio sound bites to deal with, and others have weighed in on this. David French, by the way, at National Review, who I mentioned earlier, has a unique take on this, too, that I want to share with you. Hang in there, be tough, because we'll be right back and move right on with this. Don't go away. CNN's reporting Rick Santorum is getting out of the race now, which obviously there'll be more of this. Linda in Tampa. I'm going to squeeze a phone call in here before the half hour expires. How are you, Linda?
Hi, Rush. Nice talking to you.
Same here.
Bad thing is, I'm going to have to disagree with you. I can't believe it. But on Rubio, I disagree.
Okay.
I think he's nothing more than an opportunist who will say and do whatever it takes to get elected. And when he was testing the waters here in Florida for his Senate run, we held a meet and greet for him with lots of grassroots in attendance. He introduced himself and immediately started in on immigration plans he had. And, out of the shadows, pathway to citizenship, all that stuff. We all rose up and let him know we did not approve, we were not interested in that. He said he heard us, he understood, and a lot of us went out of our way, did everything we could for him to get him elected, got to D.C., first thing he did, Gang of 8. Now we're hearing the same slick talk and speeches that he said in Florida, and we think amnesty has always been his first priority. And now we find out there's been over 24 immigration enforcement plans introduced up in Washington, and he has not co-sponsored even one.
Okay. I'm out of time. The guy's horrible. The guy's rotten. All right, fine. We'll take a break. I want to apologize to the last caller. Linda, it was just a quick stab at humor. I had 5 seconds left when you finished. I was not trying to be flippant and not take your comments seriously. I do take your comments. In fact, you expressed them fabulously well. You didn't hesitate or stutter or pause at one point. I don't doubt you. I'm not saying Marco Rubio is perfect. I'm just saying that I do not believe that Marco Rubio is representative of what we all mean when we talk about the establishment. I know he's got a lot of things to explain on immigration and amnesty. I know it's something he may never be able to get past because the issue is too important. People don't want to take a chance on it. I understand that. But I just don't want to sit by. I don't like throwing people overboard. I don't like throwing people out and getting rid of them on the basis that somehow they're impure. The guy is not a liberal. He's not a squish moderate. He's not the kind of person that's responsible for the messes. We're just not even close. But I also am not seeking perfection because, aside from me, it doesn't exist. And I say that flippantly and with attempted humor, too. And I watch the forces here that are attempting to take Rubio and plug him into that hole. I don't think he's seeking it. Look, I had a conversation with him Monday morning for a half hour here. And I asked him if I could talk about the conversation. He said I could. And he didn't put any thing off the record and disclaimers. The one thing he told me was how frustrating it is to be in the Senate. And I've heard the exact thing from Ted Cruz. Almost, not word for word, but thematically I've heard the same thing. How frustrating it is that the only thing anybody in the Senate cares about from morning to night is re-election and maintaining their position. He said, I'm not staying there. I'm out. If I don't win the presidency, I'm going to the private sector, politics. I don't want to stay in the Senate 30 years I don't want to have to stay there that long to acquire any power. The place is just not built for somebody that wants to move as quickly as that's what he told me. Now, there isn't an establishment person in the world that wants out of it. There isn't an establishment power broker. That the reason for their existence is to be in the club and to climb the ladder of success in the club and to be anointed by your betters and elders in the club and be given a hand up. And Cruz has told me the same thing. Cruz has talked about it publicly. Cruz took it public when his direct criticism of McConnell and the claim that McConnell lied to his face about a number of things. They can't get anything done there. They can't get anything done there as conservatives because the place doesn't have very many. But besides that, it doesn't have an agenda anyway other than self-preservation. So they said. Both of them have said this to me. And they're not the only ones. I've heard it from members of Congress. The Republican freshman class in 1994. Those are the people that made me honorary member. Within, what was it? 4 terms, they were all gone. They were all dynamic private sector successes, and they showed up with fire in the belly, and they were going to reform the place, and after 2 terms, they got Alan West. I remember being at a cocktail party in Washington after a very important vote when Alan West was serving in his first term. And he shows up just beat up. And he'd been told by whoever runs the House, you Tea Party guys, you're nothing. You don't get a vote unless you vote the way we want. He said, it's just, they show up eager. They show up with fire in the belly. They show up motivated and inspired, and they get beat down and beat back. And it's not that they don't have the stick-to-itiveness. It's that the prospect of hanging in there and change and making change 30 years is what Marco Rubio said to me. That's how long he figures it would take him to acquire any kind of genuine power in terms of the institution, which, it's its own universe in there. He did not sound like a guy who can't wait to be adopted by the establishment. He didn't sound like a guy who can't wait to do their bidding. And every time I've spoken with him, he has sounded like he's talking to me. I'm not talking to myself. I don't know what else to tell you. Now, I have a piece here. David French, National Review. This is from yesterday. Marco Rubio and the difference between being establishment and someone establishment voters can support. Here's his take on it. Let's begin with a simple proposition. Unless a candidate is seeking to fundamentally transform the GOP coalition, i.e. Trump, then winning a general election means uniting every GOP constituency under one banner, and happily so, Thus, we want a candidate whom establishment voters will want to support, along with populists, Tea Party conservatives, and every other wing in the GOP. It's one thing to campaign against establishment politicians, but it's another thing to shun establishment voters. French's point is, you throw the establishment politicians out left and right, but you can't throw away their voters, even though they will throw us away. Establishment people will throw conservative voters over left and right. In fact, they can't wait to do it. So don't think I'm naive about anything here. French writes, this brings me to the persistent allegation that Marco Rubio is nothing but yet another GOP stooge, a loser in the Dole McCain-Romney mold, and the tool of the Washington political class. As I've noted before, along with my colleague Jim Garrity, in many ways, Rubio is an odd fit for the establishment charge. After all, he's the original Tea Party senator who beat Charlie Crist. He's been the target of tens of millions of dollars in negative ads from the ultimate establishment candidate, Jeb Bush. And his voting record, with the notable exception of the Gang of Eight, has been not just reliably conservative, but extraordinarily so. Indeed, Rubio is the architect of the single most effective legislative assault against Obamacare since its passage. He says there's a difference between an establishment candidate and a candidate whom establishment voters can happily support. In David French, National Review writer, in his view, Rubio is the latter, a candidate whom establishment voters can happily support. Now, that would, I can imagine, scare a lot. We don't want somebody the establishment likes. Rush, don't you get it? We're talking about establishment voters out there, not in Washington. We're not talking about the donor class. We're talking about your daily, regular, run-of-the-mill GOP registered voters. Rubio is the latter. That's why talking heads speak of Rubio filling the establishment lane going forward. That's why the Bush super PAC is spending tens of millions of the Republican donor class's money attacking Rubio. If a Tea Party senator can fill the establishment lane, then millions of establishment voters are moving right, and the traditional political class truly is losing its influence. Now, that's his opinion. You may think it's all wet. You may think, my God, Rush, I can't believe you're falling for this. Well, there's no difference in an establishment voter and an establishment politician. Well, Mr. French thinks there is. And by no means through with this, folks, and there will be many more phone calls on this. And I didn't mean to shut Linda out or be flippant. I just had 3 seconds to come up with a quick reply, so I thought I would let her think she convinced me. Now, if some of you are saying, well, that explains it, Rubio called Rush on Monday. No, folks, they all call. I talk to them all. You think that, no wonder Rush is supporting Rubio. He finally that Rubio called him. They all do. I just never talk about it because most of the time it's off the record. But I asked Senator Rubio specifically if I could mention this, and he said, yeah. So there. Here's Greg in Easton, Pennsylvania. Great to have you on the EIB network. Hello.
Mac Pittos Rush from Easton, Pennsylvania.
Thank you, sir.
I have a feeling that the polls may have been right as far as Trump was concerned, and I base that on the fact, something you mentioned earlier about how many voters changed their minds last minute. And because Iowa is a caucus format, I'm a small business owner. My wife and I have a business, and I've always wanted to have a businessman run for president. And Trump seems perfect for me. But even when I talk to other conservatives, they look at me like I'm nuts, like he's going to cause World War III, or, his temper will get us in trouble. So is it possible that going into the caucuses, many people's minds were changed last minute based on the interpretation of Trump from other candidates?
It's entirely possible. Well, no, it's the way the caucus works. In fact, you need to read John Fund, Byron York. There's a couple of them out there, people that actually went to the caucuses. And Greg, this particularly you would find fascinating. the old argument that in Iowa you've got to have a ground game. You've got to have a staff that's been in the state getting people familiar with. You've got to get them at the caucus. You have to get people standing up for your guy and speaking for your guy at the caucus. Every candidate has to have an advocate. And I've read 2 or 3 different stories of reporters. One of them was John Funning, another was Byron York. They went to caucuses, and they report on 2 or 3. Nobody spoke up for Trump at any of them. There wasn't anybody at 2 or 3. Don't know how big, how small, don't know where. But the point is, Trump did not have such a ground game. He was like Romney in 2008. Remember, Romney was flying in, or 2012. Remember all those big crowds Romney was getting in the last week? Everybody thought, man, oh man, we got really something happening. But Romney did not have a get out the vote organization for conservatives, per se. He was relying on all establishment stuff. So your question, yeah, 2 things could have happened. Trump could have not had any advocates, and other candidates' advocates could have been ripping Trump left and right. That's what happens in caucuses. There are miniature debates at these things, many of them. You don't just show up and vote. There's nothing private about it. There are conversations. Some of them don't take very long, depending on their size. But, yeah, the late deciders could clearly have been influenced by the specifics of what happened at the caucus. Now, that's not going to be as big a factor in New Hampshire because Trump already has a game there, ground game there, and a little bit more. He didn't put a whole lot into Iowa because he's telling the truth. I mean, it was a place none of his experts told him he could win. So that's not jive. But that won't be as big a factor in New Hampshire. But if you're wondering about Iowa, yeah, it could have been extremely relevant, and it's a good point. I appreciate your call. See, this is why I mentioned a football story in the first hour, in case I didn't get to it. I've saved it. I got a lot of stuff saved. We'll get to it tomorrow. Plus this Zika, is that what it is, the way this thing's being spread around? Wait till you hear the latest on that. Anyway, see you tomorrow, folks. Be here.